All right, man, we're back.
We're live again.
Fun.
Well, you're live.
Yeah. Well, you can see what happened here to my face. It's actually in way better
You should see
shape.
the other guy.
The other guy was a sidewalk. So
How, how,
the
how's the
advice:
recovery going?
don't pick fights with a sidewalk. That's the takeaway from this side, anyway.
So, how's the recovery going?
So yeah. So for those of you guys that don't know, I was riding my e-bike 2 weeks ago today, actually. There's a group ride downtown. It's really fun. And I've been on it a couple times with these characters. And anyway, I was rounding a corner, was doing about 17, 18 miles an hour, hit a patch of gravel, and the bike just like stopped. It was kind of a deeper patch. It's just stopped. I flew over the head. Yeah. And broke this wrist. And so I got a cast on now. This is going to be on there for like 6 weeks, supposedly. But I've got like massive road rash, like everywhere, different patches. So I've got like antibacterial soap here and some, Aquaphor / Neosporin, whatever, to keep it moisturized and healing. And the docs were like, "Hey, look, we can wrap these up, but actually they heal faster if they're exposed to the air. So like if you could kind of keep it indoors and, in a sterilized-ish environment,
Controlled environment.
So I've been I'm not homebound or anything, but I mean, like, been keeping the circle real tight, around the house. And but I'm feeling a lot better. I look a lot better. So it's so funny. This looks so bad actually on this camera feed. But when I look in the mirror,
a couple weeks ago.
Well, when I look in the mirror, it doesn't look this bad.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, it looked bad. It looked like it was painful to smile or move your eyebrows.
It was.
It
was.
And so now you look a lot better.
Well, this is still swollen. Like I can barely like kind of. It's hard to wink.
I mean, having not seen you in a couple of weeks, it looks way better. Way better. So your recovery is...
Praise the Lord, man.
Yeah.
And I mean that sincerely, because I could have been easily way worse. So
yeah. Are you still taking some ibuprofen and stuff for the pain, or are you more or less just like kind of let it ride and don't worry about it?
So ibuprofen, they prescribed me a bunch of Oxy, so I got a jar full of Oxy. But I
standard opiates,
dude, totally. And I was like, dude, I just saw Hillbilly Elegy, and all this other
I don't want to take any of this.
So, I took one and it was fine, but then I was like, I don't even know if I want to go down this path. So I went down to, they didn't make weed legal here in Texas, but they made THC extraction derivatives legal. And so I went down to the gas station and picked up some 50 milligram gummies, and they are great. I'm like, I'm not on one right this second, but like if I'm not driving anywhere and I got like a good 4 or 5 hours, I just put one of those in, and it just...
Well, that is, that's one of the big research points for hemp and marijuana is for pain management.
It should be
a lot less dangers associated with it than opiates. So they're trying to find versions that are less psychoactive, which is kind of against the... You've got sort of two camps, right? You've got the group that's trying to make it more psychoactive,
right?
Fewer milligrams, so it's like, oh yeah, whatever the limit is, no problem, and then you can make it so psychoactive that half of that is enough to get someone completely out of mind. And you've got another group that's like, if we can get the psychoactivity down to almost zero, then this could completely replace opiates, and with far fewer side effects. I mean, probably a little weight gain from hunger and stuff,
right?
But that would be about it. Like, well, that is a cool project.
Well, we got Ozempic for that, so it should be fun.
Yeah, right. So you take the THC and then the Ozempic, and it's like the Civil War, right, in your body. Fight.
Yeah, exactly. It's what does Groucho Marx say? He does cause and cured
indigestion. Say, yeah, he stuffed spaghetti with bicarbonate of soda.
thus causing and curing indigestion at the same time. Yeah.
It's like putting Tums on your pizza. You're like, I'm covered. I'm good.
It's like, yeah, man, I take these uppers during the day to keep me going, and then I need these downers at night to bring me back down. But then I got to have the uppers bring me back up again in the morning. So it's yeah, but I'm on top of it.
I'm good. Yeah,
I'm good.
It's the Elvis cocktail.
You know, it's
or the Michael Jackson cocktail. Oh wait, no, it was the Prince cocktail. Oh, forget it. Yeah.
Dude, it's interesting too. I mean, you had Trump come out this weekend and or this week and say he's all about legalized marijuana. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Considering, I mean, he's never drank, smoked, done any drugs ever, supposedly. Yeah, I was on that. I watched that interview he did with Theo. What's his name? A big podcaster.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about.
And he was talking about the guy got him. The guy's a great interviewer, whoever that is. I'd never seen that show before, but dude, he got in there and was asking like, oh, why haven't you ever predict what's the story? And Trump started talking about his brother and kind of the cautionary tale that he was, and he's like, yeah, I'm just super glad I never experimented with any of that. And I'm over here going, I've experimented with all of that. You don't know what you missed. But it was interesting to hear, because I just heard that interview, and then for him to come out and say, yeah, I'm all about legalized marijuana. I was like, wow, that's
well, they talk about like the laboratory of the states and everything. And I think this is one where, like, okay, there's been legal in enough places, enough states for enough years, and we've seen a bunch of different avenues for how that's done. So kind of returning it to the states, like if a state wants to legalize it, then let's let them do it without having it still be a federal crime. Like, let the states figure it out for themselves. And I think too, it's been interesting because Oregon tried the same thing with just legalize everything, including, and they just repealed it.
Yeah, I remember when they did that, it was like, dude, like cocaine, everything. I'm just like, yeah, go for it.
Heroin, whatever, But that one was so, it seemed to have so many negative societal impacts that they were like, yeah, we can't do it anymore.
Even for Oregon. It was too much even for them.
Yeah, well, but I think that's, so one of the arguments against marijuana legalization has always been the like the boiling frog or the gateway drug kind of things. Like, it's a gateway drug for legislators too. Like, oh, we're going to legalize marijuana. You know what's next? We're going to legalize all this other stuff.
Get that tax revenue coming in. It's like, where else can we make money?
Well, but the problem is that if you're someone who has a kind of a wait and see approach or doesn't like this idea, then they're like, well, where does it stop? Where's it stop? And once this starts, it's just going to keep snowballing. And it turns out from Oregon, we can look and be like, no, actually, that's not true. If the societal effects are really bad, the voters will reverse it through their representatives or through a ballot initiative. And where it stops is somewhere, but it doesn't need to be at before marijuana. It can stop. That train can stop somewhere beyond that.
Right.
And so I think it's a really interesting case study in sort of a gradual release of prohibition on something until it reaches a point where it's no longer a societal good. And then they're like, okay, that's it. We went a little bit too far, and so back it off a bit and see where it goes from there.
Yeah. No. I don't want people to take this the wrong way, because I don't mean this in every case, but in general, I think it's a very good thing to see the federal government let go of power in some of these issues and let the states kind of do their own thing. There's so many, I was listening to somebody this weekend, and we're talking about secession, and
oh no,
can the United States even survive? And I'm like, you missed the funeral, bro. The United States is already dead.
It's already over.
This is a zombie country. But I think having that kind of buffet, if you will, of like, I kind of looking for more of this, I'm gonna move over here, right? I'm looking for more of that, move over here. I think is very, it's very cool. So I don't mean that on every position, but in a sense, that's what they were trying to do before the Civil War, right? So, hey, if you don't like slavery, don't move to a slave state. So obviously there's some things that cross the line, but in general, some of these like more recreational things, like, hey, well, we're more into this over here, or, whatever. I just think that's smart.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of the promise of religious fundamentalism is that you stick to the fundamentals, and then the rest of it, we can agree to disagree. Of course, usually where that winds up is everything's a fundamental,
I was going to say that's not the way
yeah,
it works in practice.
right,
I know some fundamentalists.
yeah, but the promise of it is like if we can identify the really important stuff, then we don't have to get all bent out of shape about the other things. And so, yeah, like maybe the really important stuff is our, say, the first 10 amendments or something like that, or sort of the sharing of power between the branches of the federal government. And then all this other things about like, well, should you be allowed to buy raw milk in the grocery store? It's like, you know what? We're just not gonna like. Why are we gonna get involved in that?
Crazy. I have a friend of mine who they drink raw milk.
Okay.
Not non-pasteurized, is I think
non-pasteurized. Yeah.
They got it straight from the cow, right? Goes into a bucket, goes into a jar, and it gets delivered to their house. And there's this local farmer, this dairy that sells it, delivers it, but it's very underground. It's very on the down, the DL and the hush hush, on the QT, whatever that is, right? I'm thinking of Danny DeVito, that movie, very hush hush. But it's very like she was like very even weird about even talking to me about it. And I'm like, girl, like I'm the last person that's gonna go squeal. I mean, I just help me understand how it works. Why would you do that? And she was going through all these benefits of non-pasteurized milk. And which I don't drink a lot of milk, so I didn't really care. But I thought it was fascinating that it was illegal and that this person, the dairy, could actually go to jail. Like, I mean, it is some kind of felony, whatever. I mean, that's bizarre to me.
It's like it's a cow. It's giving the milk.
It's a freaking cow, man. Exactly.
If you want to, you could like put your mouth up there and come and get some straight out.
Maybe cows do.
Nice and warm, yeah.
I think the whole idea of drinking milk, though, is kind of gross. I'm just gonna say. I don't think about it too much. I had some milk in my coffee. I'm not like
it's the interspecies thing.
It's just the whole. It's like, dude, like this is for another animal to grow, and I'm going to drink the breast milk of I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But then, like, I'm also willing to eat bugs and stuff. So.
Yeah, you are like that. You like those cricket bars.
we chopped up this animal, and then the pieces of the animal, we're just going to ingest that. It's like, yeah, that's totally
well. I am a big fan of that. Yeah.
I don't think it's any more or less weird than the milk.
Yeah.
But as far as like weird food items that are illegal, there's an island out in the Mediterranean. I can't remember if it's Sardinia or maybe Sicily, where they have like a very special local cheese. Are you familiar with this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm gonna let me look it up real quick. I'm gonna send you the link.
Let's go.
And because I want to make sure I get it right. If I mess this up, oh yeah, okay. So it's Sardinian and it's Kazu Marzu. So here I'm gonna just send you the link so that you can see what some people like to eat. It's made from sheep's milk. It's very traditional.
There it is.
Yeah.
Rotten putrid cheese.
Just keep reading.
That contains live insect larvae.
Yes,
what?
It is maggot cheese.
Maggot cheese.
Yep. So it's basically a Pecorino Romano, right? The larvae are deliberately introduced to the cheese, promoting an advanced level of fermentation. And so, like when you're doing it, there's like a little bit of, yeah. So
come on, have you tried this?
I have not. Well, no, it's illegal everywhere except in Sardinia. But
I'm
because
not above trying illegal stuff. I'm just
well, like I said, maybe the larva could you could have some contamination from it or whatever. So you can't sell it in Italy. It is banned in the EU. And then
okay, listen to this. The larva deliberately introduced to the cheese promotes an advanced level of fermentation, which breaks down the cheese's fats. The texture of the cheese then becomes very soft with some liquid seeping out.
Yeah.
The larvae themselves appear as translucent white worms, roughly 8 millimeters long.
Yeah.
Damn. That's like a third
Yeah.
of an inch. When consumed, the larva can possibly survive in the intestine, though no cases have been linked to the cheese. Oh, well, okay. So could happen, but hasn't happened to anybody that we know of. Got it.
Yeah.
And
So if you
additionally, they can carry microorganism that could lead to infections.
maybe. So yeah, if you scroll down to health concerns, it says it's possible for the larva to survive the stomach acid, remain in the intestine, leading to a condition called pseudomyosis. There have been some documented cases, though CNN claims, and they are the truth, no such
Oh,
case has been linked to
CNN.
the cheese. So a cooperation between sheep farmers and
Guinness World
researchers.
Records lists it as the world's
most dangerous cheese. Yeah. So I look at that and like, okay, that exists.
Dangerous cheeses.
That exists. Raw milk. I mean, what's the problem?
Right.
That's
right.
fine.
We've got freaking cheese. We got bug cheese going on here.
Bug cheese. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy just the weird customs that are around the world? I mean, just totally weird. I mean, we were in Thailand. Dan and I went to Thailand and ate scorpions on a stick, And I mean, even here in America, you get, the little the worm and the tequila. I paid extra for that.
Think about just eating shrimp at all.
Oh, I can. I had some this weekend. It was delicious.
Right, but
shrimp,
I mean,
little shrimps.
It's a bug. You're eating these giant water bugs.
So are crawfish.
Yeah, crawfish. I mean, you eat the crawfish. You take the thing apart.
I pull them apart. Yeah.
Suck the
head. That's it.
Suck the head. Suck the juices out of the head and stuff, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's it's delicacy.
Sucking
Anytime
head,
someone
tail,
says
man.
it's a delicacy,
it is a delicacy. It's delicious.
Whenever someone says that,
thinks I'm crazy. Yeah.
Your antenna should pop up. You're like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Sounds probably disgusting.
It's a delicacy. Would you like some raw bacon fat? And you're like, maybe I do. I don't know.
Monkey brains. Monkey brains. That's another one. Monkey brains. Does that make you smarter or dumber? I don't know.
There was this really funny movie. I can't remember which movie it was, but it's one of those sort of cross-cultural things. This American kid is hanging out in this very remote part of, I think it was West Africa, and his family's there. They're researchers. They're doing whatever, and so he's hanging out with the local kids. And one of them goes back and he's like, "Mom, you'll never guess what this guy eats," And he's like, "What is she?" He's like, "Oh, they eat this and this," and it's like normal stuff we think is totally normal. And she's like, "Don't talk that way. That's disgusting. I don't want to hear about that. Now, go ahead and drink your goat's milk and pig's blood."
Right.
You're like, pig's blood? What? Yeah.
Well, dude. So did you listen to that podcast I sent you? That was the brother and sister talking about the health issues or whatever.
Yeah, I just finished that. That was pretty wild. I was kind of impressed. So basically, this is an issue that is, I think, very hot right now. If anyone's watching this years down the road, and late 2024, people are very concerned about what they're calling ultra processed foods, and the best definition, because I'm thinking ultra processed, yogurt's ultra processed. I mean, those acidophilus bacteria have processed the ever living crap out of that milk, right? But it's no, it's using these industrial processes. So think of refined sugars, bleached flours, the use of high fructose corn syrup, colors, additives, those kinds of things, and that those are a larger and larger proportion of our diets, and people are starting to link that. And again, some years down the road, maybe we'll find out how much of this is true or not. They're linking it to various chronic conditions. Mm-hmm. And what these guys were saying was not that it was a conspiracy, because it's not like people are planning this stuff, but that there's sort of a general capitalistic incentive that the sicker you are with things that can be long-term treated, the more money the not only the pharmaceutical business, but a lot of times they're sort of in bed with the agribusiness, sort of everybody makes money together.
Mhm.
So, so it doesn't do uh, it doesn't help large pharma companies for you to walk around, eating a multivitamin once a day and that's it. Like it's much better if you are on something that's very chronic, that requires a very expensive medication, probably that's covered by insurance or
Mhm.
Medicare. Maybe Medicare pays for it, and so you're sort of brought back to a level of mostly healthy. And if you have multiple of these at once, that's even better for business. But
Right.
again, it's not like they're trying to make things. It's not like, oh, let's go find ways to get people sick. It's just kind of like, well, what we do is we sell medicine, and medicine is only to help people who are sick. And so, kind of, no one wants to look into why they're getting sick. They're just kind of focused on treating whatever illnesses they wind up with. And if it turns
Yep.
out that they get sicker and sicker over time, uh, that's just good for business.
Yep.
Um, so
And they
kind of,
with it, and it was not a, like you said it perfect. It's not a conspiracy. It's just
yeah.
an alignment of all these forces, and
Mhm.
kind of like an alignment of all these interests. And people just, the stats that they were sharing, I think, is what's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That like the childhood obesity, um, something like the percentage. I don't want to make up these percentages because I mean they were too astonishing to even
Mhm.
make up. That something like 10 times the number of the percentage that used to be of obesity to what is now. And
Yeah.
what they said in the podcast that I thought was so interesting is like, the best thing if you think about like the medical business, and which I've got some firsthand
Yeah.
experience now, brand new first time experience. But they don't make money unless there's something wrong with people,
Mhm.
right? I mean, like you got to get hurt or sick, and then the doctor gets paid. It used to be you trade him some chickens to come and whatever, right?
Or whatever. Yeah, whatever.
To bleed you, right? Whatever, however
To
it used to
put
be.
the leeches on you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, but the best thing for the medical establishment was a sick kid, because sick kid, that's if they get the like, oh, that was the thing, the childhood diabetes, like, so the
Mhm.
people that are pre-diabetic, and especially as kids, like it used to be such a minuscule number, like in the single digits. Now it's like, I mean, I think what did they say, like 20%?
Yeah, it's
It
like a
was
fifth or something, or a fourth. Some
yeah,
incredibly high number.
crazy. 20 to
Yeah.
25% of children are considered obese, right? And uh, and it's such it's become this thing where you can't. Um, I had realized this a few years ago that that saying that somebody was overweight was now hate speech, right? Like that you couldn't just
Oh.
observe, like, oh, you you're heavier probably than, I mean, do you want to be that heavy? We could do something about it, whatever the case may be, and say, oh no, you can't even suggest that they can do anything about it. That you have no agency whatsoever. This is a genetic condition. It's an illness. It's a disease, and the way we're going to treat it was with another pill, of course. And
Mhm.
I when I first heard some of these things being talked about that way, it was right after I did my first master cleanse. So back in that would have been
Oh gosh, this is like,
2008.
yeah, I was gonna say this is like 15 years ago. Yeah.
2008, yeah. So in 2008, I did. One of my friends had challenged me to do the master cleanse. So if you guys don't
Mhm.
know what master cleanse is, it's a complete fast for 10 days. And during that fast, these are the things that you can consume. You can have as much water as you want, and you can have non-caffeinated tea, like peppermint tea or something like that, right?
Chamomile or something. Yeah.
Chamomile, right?
Yeah.
And you can have as much of you want of this concoction. So it is an 8-ounce drink, 8 ounces of water, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, fresh squeezed lemon juice, 2 tablespoons of grade B maple syrup, so the real heavy calorie, non-refined maple syrup,
Mhm.
and a pinch of cayenne pepper. And when you mix that up, you want to pound it real fast because the acid with the lemon mixes with the cayenne pepper, and the longer it sits there, the hotter and more ridiculous it gets to drink.
Yeah,
So
you got to chug that quick.
you mix it and you chug it, and it's because of the sugar that's in the maple syrup. You do feel satiated through the day. So like, I mean, anytime you're feeling hungry or anytime you need a boost, no more Red Bulls, no more this and that, right? No more caffeine.
Go make you one of these.
But yeah, go make yourself another one of these. And so
the fire mocktail.
In a typical day, like I'd be drinking like one of those an hour. So you're talking about, 15, 16 of these every day. And it's amazing. The first time I did it, it wasn't even really to lose weight. It was more to get a handle on my body, like the things that I felt going on in my body. Like I had some acid reflux. I had some other things that I was dealing with that I just could tell I wasn't really firing, which is no surprise. I mean, I was newly divorced. I was living down in Adams Morgan in DC. I was bartending. I was just, like I was putting all kinds of crap in my body. So not surprising. So I knew, I was like, okay, well, this is obviously on me. I did this to myself. And so let me just
time to fix it. Yeah.
And so I did the master cleanse, and transformative, right? So lost like a few pounds, but also just the clarity that you have. Like you have no, there's all the energy that your body spends digesting food, the amount of time that you think about what you're going to be eating, who you're going to be eating with, what are you going to have, what are you going to do after you eat, right? The energy that it takes to, like, as you eat, we don't even pay attention to it because it's such a part of our daily routine, but like your body takes a lot of energy to digest the food that you put into it. It's got to compact it, it's got to liquefy it, extract the energy from it, pass the waste out. All those different things are going on every time you eat. And so when you're just giving your body a complete rest from all of that, the only thing you're giving it is literally like there's some amino acids in that drink, and which building blocks for protein. You can literally like go for weeks. I know people have done that fast for like a month longer. So it's not obviously it's very restrictive. It's not a lifestyle choice, but it is a great reset for your body. And so like, anyway, and also the bombardment, I was so present to probably like 5 or 6 days in, like after you kind of get over the,
what am I doing?
First day is kind of fun because you're like, oh, this is all new, right? And then day 2, 3, it's like, this sucks. I got to do this for 10 days. I can't do it, right? And then, but once you get over that, so now it's day 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, like right in there, and you're like, wow, I'm sleeping great. I got plenty of energy, right? All the things I was afraid of, I'm going to starve to death, whatever, right? Like none of that's real. Any craving that you're having, like you have all these cravings, cheeseburger, pizza, whatever it is, right? And Bloody Mary, whatever, that literally, if you just like, because sometimes they're so overwhelming that you're like, I have to have a cheeseburger right now. And what they coach you as you're going through, like that is literally a toxin being purged from your system. And as that toxin is being purged out, that your body is like, I need that, right? Whatever it is that's in that. And so if you can just, okay, what if you just gave me a giant head of lettuce right now and I just ate that? Like if you're really hungry, like here's a head of lettuce, and eat that. And like all of a sudden you don't have any appetite because you're not really hungry. You're just craving that particular item, which is interesting, right? So I was living in DC at the time too, which my car was, I had a car, but I had it parked most of the time because, it's hard to find parking and I lived in a really congested spot. So I was taking public transportation around, walking, whatever. The ads everywhere for food, everywhere, everywhere. And like, it's hard to see it when you can go eat anytime you want. But when you know that you haven't eaten for days, you're not going to eat for days, and you see it's like such a draw. Like it is so part of the fabric of how we live, right? Okay, so the whole reason I'm going through that story is right after I did that, that's when I started hearing the first time I heard, oh, being skinny or fat or overweight or this and that, the other, that has nothing to do with us. It's just the way that I'm like, that is so ridiculous. Like just ridiculous. Like, what do you mean you don't have any agency? Like, look what I just did. Right. And anybody can make choices like that. We just don't, and, when they were talking about, and so these two people are Hallie and Casey Means, for those of you guys that want to look them up. They, and I was a little iffy about even going through the podcast because it was on Tucker Carlson, and I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith in Tucker's, points of view on a lot of things. However, I have really been attracted to his interview style lately, and I'd say
he lets
because
people talk. Like you're gonna hear him out.
Yeah, and he's not a great interviewer like Rogan. I think is one of the best. What's great about Rogan is you don't even have to listen to him and go, oh my God, I disagree with that, or I don't, whatever, because he's so about the guest. He's not there pushing anything. I mean, he'll say something here or there or whatever, pepper the conversation with observations, but he's not pushing an agenda, where Tucker kind of is sometimes, right? So that's where I was a little bit like, eh. However, this interview, he just basically, because he was, I think, blown. Like, if you hear his tone of voice when he's asking these questions, like, wait a minute, so explain that to me again. So what are you saying? And I think that's one of the best interviews. And so I've gone and looked up some other stuff that they've done, and they just, to me, the way that the conclusion that they've come to is that she was like a surgeon, right? And he was a lobbyist for Coca-Cola, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's not like they don't know what they're talking about. Like
a little bit of an inside track.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things that she said was, she was talking about being a surgeon, right? And she was like, when you're going through medical school, and really the whole business of medicine, and I know this from when I used to work at ZocDoc and meeting a bunch of doctors. The more specialized you are, the more money you make, right? So you have a general practitioner or a pediatric, they're going to make the least. And then, as you go up, you're a heart surgeon or a neurosurgeon, whatever the case may be, like, you're very specialized. She was like, there's surgeons that literally, like, all they do is focus on this one little piece of the ear, and
but they're the best at that one thing,
right? Yeah, at that one thing, and it is a necessary thing. And so, well, anyway, there's nothing wrong with that. However, she says what happens is over time, the American way of treating things has become, instead of looking at the body as this holistic system that, like, oh, you have a rash that's coming out on your hand. Well, that may be related to this thing that you are eating or whatever the case may be. They're not looking at the whole, what do you call it, the biome or the body, whatever the technical term is, like the system of your body functioning, right? It's more like, oh, you have a problem with your X, so we're going to take that out or give you some meds. And it's all like, how do we prescribe you more pills? And how do we prescribe you pills that you're going to have to take the rest of your life? Which I thought was fascinating. What was the date that they said in there, that before, was it 1970 or something like that? That there was no chronic medication at all.
Right.
That is an entirely new phenomenon that's happened in yours and my lifetime. That before we were born, there weren't. That's crazy. What do you mean there weren't chronic conditions? The medical, and you can say, okay, well, so we've made a lot of strides, and people that had these chronic conditions that were undiagnosed, now they're diagnosed, and we know how to do with them. So yeah, that's.
Or they were diagnosed and they just had to suffer through it, and maybe now they don't have to suffer as much. And so like,
as I was listening to the interview, I'm like, well, maybe it's that, but when you realize, like, oh no, but once you like put the business motive in there, I run a business. I'm here to make as much money as I possibly can. I make as much money as I can by serving as many people as I can. Hopefully I'm serving them with some good service or good product, whatever, right? But in that particular business, medication, right, it is kind of perverse, because it is in my interest as a doctor to not have you get well, but to have you manage whatever it is that you're managing, and continue to use me to manage it.
Yeah. Well, you can think of it like, I mean, this is a bit of a revolution that happened in business. And you can see it happening in a lot of different industries, where you kind of have the product as more of, you don't want to sell the product, you want to sell the subscription. So, because if like, I don't know, I mean, Adobe.
Well, Microsoft Office just did this.
Yeah. Well, Adobe is a big one because it happened a few years ago and people are still mad about it. But it's like, well, you used to be able to purchase Photoshop. It's like, well, you can't buy Photoshop anymore. You can subscribe to Photoshop. And it's like, well, look, I mean, if you were upgrading every year when we put out a new version, you're probably saving money by.
We're going to save you money.
Yeah. Right. But it suddenly takes away a lot of their incentive to innovate, right? Because it's like, well, if you're, I don't have to compete with my previous version, right? I don't have to make it so much better that you want to spend more on the new one. I just have to compete with
What's
the
out there right now.
cost of switching. And the
Mhm.
cost of switching might be extremely high or maybe even impossible depending on the industry that you're in. And so you can leave your job or you can keep paying me, you know? So if you think about like this sort of subscription revolution, well, a lot of the medications now are designed as subscriptions. That it's not that you were going to give you a medication that solves your problem and then you go on with your life. It's that you need to continue taking this um, forever, really. In fact, as long as your side effects are well managed, we may not even look at taking you off of it. Right?
Mhm.
It is. Why would we? It's working. It's fine.
Well, one of the
Um,
things that I got educated on in that conversation was one of the things about the Affordable Care Act that I thought was great, literally up until like 2 days ago. This is what's
oh, is
crazy.
this the profitability percentage?
No, no,
Okay.
I still think that's great.
Okay.
But the outcome oriented care, right? So the whole idea when they incorporated this into the legislation was that they're aware of this. I don't want to call it a problem, but this characteristic, let's say, of the healthcare business. And so, look, we want patients to have better outcomes, right? So it's great that you have these procedures and these drugs and whatever, but at the end of the day, we want to measure, did this person get better because they dealt with you? And the more times that you can show as a doctor or hospital or whatever the case may be, as an organization, that your outcomes for patients improved,
Hmm.
then you're in a more advantageous spot in the way that the ACA pays you and distributes funds. Okay,
Right.
which to me, like, okay, that's smart. That makes sense. Absolutely, right. But then you find out that the way they measure that outcome is, did they get you on medication to deal with that, right? And as long as they prescribed you something to deal with it, they can
Good
report a good
outcome.
outcome.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Well, I mean,
crazy.
it's.
It
I think it's.
also is so revealing that, like, oh, you got all these drug companies spending all this money, and I think that was another thing that they covered in there is just that they're the number one big pharma, number one lobbyist group in
Number
the
one what?
country. Lobbyists, they spent more money,
Oh, yeah.
and I mean, it's not even
Well,
close. It's like
well,
almost double number
I
two.
mean, this is one of those things. I think it's kind of funny whenever you watch, say, like the news, and many of the ads on the news, any large news organizations, many of the ads are going to be pharma ads, and they're for stuff like I remember watching one. Sometimes it's kind of a cool way to find out if something's really wrong. I remember I called the opioid crisis a little early.
Hotline.
No, no,
Oh,
no.
oh, oh, oh,
I
oh.
figured out that this
You
was
predicted
going
it.
on because everyone was just like, "What's the problem?" No issues for a long time. And there was an ad on the news, and it was for treating opioid related constipation.
Hmm.
So if you're on opioids for a long enough time, your intestines shut down. They don't, whatever signaling that's involved in blocking pain also
Gets interfered
involves
with. Yeah.
also interferes with this. So you'll have really bad constipation, and it just kind of gets worse the longer you're on it. And they were showing these pictures of ordinary professionals doing stuff, and they're like looking sad because they're constipated because they're on a crap ton of
It is
opiates.
sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, sad lawyer, sad construction worker, sad mom, and I'm like, wait, are you telling me that there are so many people on so many opiates for so long that now the drug that treats constipation for those people is now a big enough deal that they have a minute long ad that costs millions of dollars to produce and put like this this is messed up. Like there's something terribly wrong here if that's so prevalent now. There's too many people on, on drugs.
Hmm.
But anyway, the thing though is that a lot of times you will see these drugs where you're like, for severe, and they'll list out the thing, and you look it up and you're like, it's extremely rare disease. Like, why is there an ad for this
Hmm.
extremely rare disease? Ask your doc. Ask your doctor about it. And you're
Ask
like,
your doctor.
no one's going to ask your doctor, like, how many people even have this? But it's like, well, no, it's not about getting this information to the patient or even to the doctor, but it's a way of financing the news program,
Mhm.
right? So the news is now funded by by us, and so how often are you going to get a um, a story that's critical of large pharma concerns? And not necessarily that they're going to call someone up and say, hey, don't tell the story or don't, but everybody kind of knows where the money comes from. And it's just kind of a thumb on the scales, right? Again, it's like, it's not that we're out there, poisoning the water supply to make people sick, but if 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 someone got sick, it's none of our business. We're here to
Right.
help, right?
We're here to help. That's right.
It's kind of funny that you talked about that cleanse. So I love doing kind of fun dietary challenges. I did like vegetarianism for a few months. Done all sorts of stuff. One of my favorites has been the carnivore diet,
Mm.
and not because there's people that get on this stuff for
So what is that? That's meat only or protein only?
meat only. Meat
Okay.
only. You can have meat. You can have anything that comes off the animal.
So
So
milk's fine,
milk is
dairy.
fine. You can even have cheese if you want.
It's the anti-vegan
Bacon.
diet.
You
I
can
only eat things that come from animals.
Yeah, if you want to cook something and you don't put oil in the pan, you put butter. Um, and
I'm a big fan
the
already.
you can put salt on it. They say if you're very strict, you won't even use pepper, salt only.
Mhm.
Essential nutrient. Well, anyway, so I've tried various versions of this. And one of the most amazing thing that happens is, so I do it as the same way what you're talking about. It's kind of a reset. One of the things that I found out with it, realized with it is, yeah, the amount of food advertisements. And the food advertisements are all for, oh, well, hello. Um, the food advertisements are all for garbage. Um, and like the stuff that you would go get at a restaurant is like, all sorts of crazy processed stuff. And I think really, it was very eye-opening. And the same thing, like when you talk about you can have as much as you want or do whatever. That was the same for me on carnivore. It was like, hey, anytime you want to eat, you can eat. You want to make a steak, make a steak. Eat the steak. You can eat the whole thing. You want to make a steak that's like that big, you know, 24-ounce ribeye, eat it. Try
24-ounce ribeye.
try it. And this is something that I found out was that like I had to stop eating 3 meals a day
Mm.
because I would get to dinner and I would make myself this beautiful steak and the butter and everything. And I was like, I don't want to eat it. And I would kind of force
Because you
myself to
were
eat it. And I
full.
was like, I was already, yeah, I wasn't hungry.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, what happens if I take this and I put it in the fridge and then I'm not getting anything tomorrow? Tomorrow at dinner, I'm going to try this steak again. Same exact steak. So the thing that I had a few bites of, I'm, by the next day, take it out of the fridge, put it in the microwave, heat it up. And it was like the most amazing thing I've ever eaten. And it's like, oh, this is the difference between hunger and not
Mhm.
hunger.
Mhm.
And it's like, try overeating, you know, chicken thighs. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And so like I wound up losing a bunch of weight. Not that I was even trying to. I wasn't even I didn't even weigh myself. I weighed
It's
myself at
more
the end.
it's more of a discipline, yeah. See what
But
happens. Experiment.
experiment, yeah. But it was like, oh, like my food is somehow or another interfering with my ability to tell if I'm full or hungry. And then also like I would want to eat more than like I routinely would eat until I just felt like massively full. Like I would have like terrible heartburn and stuff, and I'd be like,
Mhm.
big man, big appetite kind of thing. And
Right.
um, but then it's like, well, no, that wasn't my appetite. And it
Mhm.
took this little experiment to find out, and it's kind of like those lessons I still use all the time. When I want to eat, it's like, well, eat things that you won't want to overeat. So, like for dessert, try eating an apple, and then like you finish your apple, and you're like, would I like another apple? And the answer is almost always no.
No,
You're
I'm
like,
good. Yeah.
I'm good. I've had it. You know, if it
Yeah.
was ice cream, it's like, would you like another slice of pie? The answer is
Absolutely.
absolutely, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what if I just switch to foods that I can't overeat?
Mhm.
And it's like, we can eat as much as you want because you won't want more than you should have. And what this podcast that we're both referring to is what they pinned a lot of the stuff on was a food supply, a food ecosystem that is almost all foods that are designed to be overeaten. They have very low nutritional quality, but very high calories, um, and that tend to also promote imbalances within the body's systems.
Mhm.
And what I liked about this, because I was kind of the whole time, I'm kind of waiting for the sales pitch. Like that's why you
Right.
should
What are you
buy our
trying to
book.
sell me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
enroll in our
That's why you should
course.
buy our
We'll,
book. Yeah.
we'll teach you everything you need to know in our course. It's only $9.99. But at the end, what their prescription was just eat things that you have to cook and that are not processed. Like go to the grocery
Mhm.
store, buy the ingredients. It's like, hey, is it meat? Is it are you vegetarian? Are you vegan? Doesn't matter, right? You just eat whatever, but eat stuff that you're cooking and that is made out of whole ingredients, and you'll be fine. Like it's not that there's like a specific um, prescription. It's that you need to stop eating the stuff that is making you sick. That's what we
Mhm.
need to do. I thought it was really fascinating.
Yep. I put the link for those of you guys that are watching are like, oh, well, enough already. How do I listen to this or whatever? The link's in there, and you can check it out. And that's a link to their website. And it's interesting, this girl, Callie, she stepped away from being a surgeon. She was 30 years old, and once she kind of realized that she was in a system that was part of the problem, right? And she's
Mhm.
just one of those rare people, I think, that some people are so principled, right, that they make decisions that are not in their own best interest because the principle is so important. Those people are increasingly rare. I find, like everybody's got principles until you have a tough decision to make, and then we'll find out, how strong these principles are. And she's just one of those people. It's like, no, this is not right. I'm not going to be a part of it, right?
I'm
And
not going to do it.
walked
Yeah.
away from a surgical career. And when she told her brother that she was doing that, he was like, "You're crazy. You're nuts,"
Mhm.
But he was also from the lobbyist standpoint, also part of the thing, and I guess as the more they started talking, the more he was like, "No, you know what? I want to do this with you," which I just think is really cool. So these are not uh, uh, uninformed people that are, or some hacks. I mean, these are people that are, I mean,
Flat Earth Society members or something.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. I think
It's
the other thing
aliens. No.
the other thing that I really want to talk to you about today
Mhm.
is you made a point the other day, and it's a great segue on this. Like, so one of the people that's been talking about this issue nonstop, this health thing and
Mhm.
pharmaceuticals and all this stuff, has been RFK Jr., right? Or
Yeah.
RFKJ. Let's just call RFKJ. We'll do the
We'll just call him KJ.
KJ. Yeah, okay. All right. So KJ.
KJ. Yeah.
RFKJ. KJ. You're right. Dude, it's so crazy. That's like
Too
saying
many
half the
letters.
syllables. Half the syllables. Two letters, half the syllables. Anyway, so KJ has been talking about this nonstop,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yep.
his fan base, right, is a pretty diverse fan base. You got people on the right that are like anti-vaxxer people that like him. You got people on the left that are like pro environment and anti big pharma and all this other stuff on the left.
Mhm.
So, he had a great cross section. Well, when he came out last week, was it last week? 2 weeks ago? I don't know. Shit's moving
Yeah.
too fast. That's crazy. We take 2 weeks off, and it's seismic events, man.
Yeah. It's a different world.
So yeah, so he comes out, is like, okay, I'm suspending my campaign, and I'm going to support Trump. And and Trump's talking about like we're going to make him, I don't think he said Secretary of Health or whatever, but he's definitely like, hey, look, you can. When
And
Trump's handed out appointments in his cabinet like Kleenex right now. Like, oh yeah, come on in here, right? But it's interesting
yeah.
because you made the point that since that happened, right, the backlash against RFK for doing that and aligning with Trump is so extreme that you now have people that were on the left, which I proudly consider myself, a proud liberal. But I'm liberal because of the positions, not because of the team, right? And what's interesting is like, if those positions are now over here with these guys, well, then I'm a fan of those guys because I'm a fan of that position, right? Like that makes sense. Like if I care about soccer, I don't care whether it's being played on ESPN or BN Sports or Eurosport or whatever.
You're switching to
You've
the
got the game.
channel.
I'm going to switch the channel to the game because that's what I want to watch. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but what's bizarre in this climate is that you got people, oh, well, you're with him now. Well, so then now I'm against everything that I used to be for literally yesterday.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because I mean I think you've seen this in multiple areas, not just in health.
Yeah. Well, I think this is like a step 3, or I guess maybe more like step 2 in the big reshuffling of issues that has been going on since 2015, 2016. And I think that what has been kind of a block for a lot of people is the party structure, and they kind of feel like they're on team red or team blue, and so it sort of doesn't occur to them. Maybe they really are. Maybe it really is just purely a political exercise. My team is in power. My people get the cookies, and it kind of doesn't matter what they do with them as long as it's my team,
Yeah.
And that's fine. Politics is like a sport in that case, and cool. But for the people who are engaging in politics for issues, I think it's been very jarring for some people to watch that, an issue that they really love kind of go all the way over here. Like if this was 2004 and we're talking about, if you really didn't want to get involved in more wars, which is the party for you? And you're like,
oh, Democrats for sure.
Democrats.
That is it's so funny too, because my own personal journey, right? I voted Republican. Of course we grew up conservative Christian evangelical household, right? So I mean, like all the stereotypes are there, right? So like, I mean, of course we loved Republicans, we love American Jesus, right? And and all this stuff, social issues, whatever, right? So it was the Iraq War. I mean, I voted for George Bush in 2000. And I just thought he was cool, man. And Al Gore was a drag. Bush was cool. He's from Texas. I'm from Texas. I love the swagger. I love all that stuff. And he's just a normal guy. And I thought he was terrific. And then it's like, okay, you see the Bosch response to September 11th. You see the ADD invasion of Afghanistan, where it's like, oh, and now we invaded them. We haven't found these guys, but
mission accomplished.
Iraq is the real problem, and let's go in there, and then let's go in there and come out with mission accomplished, right? But oh, by the way, terrorism. So even though mission accomplished, we still have orange to red threat levels every day. Ashcroft coming out here, you're about to die, all this stuff. It's okay to torture people because we got to protect America. And surveillance state. I mean, that's when Snowden,
That's all took place under Bush.
All under Bush. I was completely outraged. I'm like, I'm quoting Ben Franklin, like, hey, I mean, those who would give up, what does he say? Those who would give up essential liberty for a temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. I'm quoting Franklin. I'm talking, well, you guys need to wake up. This guy, I'm not, and I don't think I'm going to stop short of saying that Bush is a war criminal. I don't believe he's a war criminal. I don't know.
I'll say it.
We'd have to, you will? Okay. So I don't,
I have no problem with that.
Cheney for sure. I'll put Darth Vader in that box, but I mean, Bush, I think he was kind of along for the ride. I mean, he's tried it, whatever. I'm not going to psychoanalyze people. I stopped short of that, but I still was like, okay, well now it's like the complete opposite. Now it's like, if you're anti-surveillance state, anti-war, anti all these different things, it's like, well, the only people talking about that, it's not even Republicans. It's like Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Ron Paul,
the MAGA
Bernie, you go down, but it's not, it's all of these people that are kind of in the, I know you like to say establishment. I hate that word because it makes it seem like it's some kind of monolith, and maybe I don't know, whatever. I'm still just not there on that. But
I mean, why not take the same approach we were talking about with pharma and agriculture, and just say, well, I mean, it's kind of some interlocking incentives that, if you're Raytheon, for example, war is good for business,
Well,
and
and that is the way I see it.
that's
I
okay.
don't, yeah, I don't see it as some like, Rothschild Illuminati
No,
conspiracy.
no,
It's
no,
just
it
these
doesn't have
are,
to be like that.
yeah, but these are interests that align. And it's like when people point it out, all of a sudden they get ridiculed, run off the stage, whatever the case may be, right? And because you have these, I mean, you look at these outlier type people, and they're on the right and the left, but the vast majority of the conversations that I'm hearing from my Democrat friends is, which usually I'm pretty reliable for um, being on the Democrat page of things, right? Like, I mean, I'm for, for gay rights. I'm for uh, um, I'm for Social Security and Medicare. I'm for safety net. I'm for, universal health care. I mean, all kinds of different
Mhm.
things that that I've taken
Sure.
positions on, and I still stand by those positions. However, it's like, okay, well, the vast majority of stuff that they're talking about now are these very fringe, nebulous kind of things. Like we got to protect democracy, or we got to, uh, we just need to
Stop
bring joy
misinformation.
and stop misinformation and bring joy back. And it's like,
Joy.
I'll ask questions like, well, hey, do you feel like this whole nomination process was kind of crazy? Do you feel like, I mean, do you like what these border policies have been? Do you like the hyperinflation? Do you like, I mean, these are real things that are really happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you're living under a rock, but I mean, clearly, like, I mean, they affect you too, right? And it's like, do you have a problem with it? Well, and I finally got an honest answer out of somebody about a week ago. They were like, look, yes, I have a problem with all that, but the more important thing is to keep Trump out of office. And so if I send, and that goes on the right too. I mean, Charlie Kirk, who's a
Sure.
huge like
Yeah.
pro-life guy, right? There's a massive backlash against Trump right now in the pro-life community because he's saying he's going to veto a federal ban on abortion, and that he's for a longer than 6 week window for people to
Mhm.
have abortions. Which, I mean, dude, of course you should be, from my point of view. But but the pro-life people are like, oh, he's gone off the reservation. We got to, we're not going to support Trump. And Charlie Kirk made a statement like, hey, look, I mean, we got a lot out of Trump the last time. We'll get more out of him next time. He's got to say what he's got to say to get elected. And, we can't, if you come out and fight against him, or draw some line in the sand or call for people to do whatever, then you're going to run the risk of electing Kamala, and you know what she's going to do for reproductive rights, whatever, for abortion, where she's going to kill more babies, however he says it.
Yeah.
And so we got to support Trump. So I mean, it does happen on both sides. I'm not calling out anybody. It's just, I mean, but I find that completely like, at least he owns it like that, right? Whereas so many people on the left, it was like pulling teeth to get that out of the person who told it to me, and it's like, dude, you don't have to apologize. The candidates suck. I don't identify with any of this messaging that's going on, but when you said that to me, how people had literally like just flipped over into these different camps, it was very interesting, man. We talked a lot about like affirmative action, for example. I don't most black people I know aren't fans of affirmative action, or haven't been. And so it's like you don't hear this huge backlash from. I mean, I Google it and see, like, is there a huge backlash in the black community about affirmative action? No, there's not.
Yeah.
There's not a thing. I mean, it was like this seismic event when they made the decision, but everybody's moved on. It's like, okay, it's not like people are getting screwed now.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things you're witnessing. This is my take on it. So my non-scientific take
Yeah.
is that we're watching. I think the power of propaganda, and kind of like a mass hypnosis event. Um,
We
Similar,
could call
like,
it gaslighting.
Well, yeah, but gaslighting usually takes place within relationships, and it's kind of a interpersonal kind of thing.
Well,
Um,
hypnosis usually takes place one-on-one too. So
you have mass hypnosis, right? You
yeah,
have
that's
group
yeah.
hypnosis, right? You have the hypnotism show, and you got the people up there barking like dogs, whatever. It's like you don't remember anything. Um, but I think there's a little bit of that where you get kind of some razzle dazzle going on. Um, you have people. I mean, one of the things that I probably annoyed everybody to death in the our political chat thread where I would post side by side uh, stuff from a lot of times headlines or for opening paragraphs of the exact same newspaper with the exact same person, but like 2 years apart, and suddenly
And
like
totally flip-flopped on the position. Yeah.
totally flip flopped, but they present it like it's super obvious and everybody knows this or whatever. And I
Right.
think that most people don't walk around with like, here are the things that I believe. And I'm willing to change them if I get good evidence or some kind of argumentation showing me that I'm wrong. But otherwise, that's how I'm going to see the world. And so when I see somebody and they say something opposite, right, when they're like, in order to protect the freedom of speech, we have to in an insert Patriot Act stuff. We got to surveil people, and you're like,
Right.
wrong. That's
Right.
false.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. But I don't think very many people have that. I think what it is there's like a little tunnel, an intellectual tunnel of here are the people that that are telling me what's normal to believe. They're setting normalcy. And so as long as I am within the tunnel of normalcy, I don't really look at what else is around there and like, well, we might have turned, but I won't know because all I see is I'm going straight ahead. I'm just going
Well,
straight ahead into normalcy. And
somebody
it turns
made
out you're now going the opposite direction.
right.
But from your perspective, you're just so
I've
it's
always
been
been
really
headed
fun.
this direction.
I've
Yeah.
always been headed. I'm going straight ahead, and I've called people on some of this stuff before too. Where it's like, wait a minute, like you think this? That's kind of weird because one of the best ones have been like misinformation or freedom of speech stuff. Talking to people who are say some of my friends who are part of the LGBTQIA2S plus community are like, you do realize that 15 years ago, pride parades only happened as a free speech issue. That people saw it as harmful, that what you were doing was degenerate, and that a celebration of it was
Undermines our culture,
undermines our
dangerous for children. Yeah.
danger. Yeah, but it's like, well, no, because we have free speech
Free speech.
protections, then we're allowed to do this, and we're here, we're queer, and get used to it.
Yeah.
And so now, for you to say, well, no, actually, that's always been wrong. The government should decide what things should be allowed because otherwise it's harmful, and it's like your movement would have never gotten off the ground if that
Yeah,
was true.
exactly. Well, and it's like the pivoting of the ACLU too. Like
Oh,
used to
that
be
one's weird. That one I don't
to
understand.
me. Yeah, I don't get that either. Well, it's interesting though. I really don't get it. Somebody pointed this out to me recently. They're like, sometimes people say I don't understand X when what they really mean is I don't agree with X, right? Like people that say, "Oh, I don't understand how you could possibly vote for Kamala Harris," for example. It's like I
Like, well,
totally understand how you could vote for. I mean,
you just don't
you
agree
know,
with it. Yeah.
you
Or
just don't agree with it.
that person
Yeah,
doesn't. Yeah.
exactly. But I legitimately do not understand the ACLU. I don't get it. It's like, dude, you back in the day, and I mean, I'm talking like 80s, 90s, right? Early 2000s. The if you were a uh, evangelical, conservative Christian, whatever, like the ACLU was your arch enemy.
Hated them.
Hated them, right? Like, oh, you're a card carrying member of the ACLU, right? And like, and I remember when that movie, The American President, came out.
Oh yeah, I had that speech about like, why aren't you a member?
Why aren't you, Bob?
Yeah, they're out there protecting the First Amendment rights for everybody. What's the problem?
Right. So why aren't you? And I thought that
Now
was
it's like,
such
why
a
aren't they? Why aren't they members of their own
why aren't
organization
why
anymore?
aren't they? I mean, this is an organization that has fought for the right of Nazis, not
Actual
neo-Nazis, actual Nazis with swastikas, etc., that they have the right to freely assemble and and march and whatever else. And
hand out propaganda, whatever.
They have the right to do that because we have a right to free speech. In fact, like your objective, I think when, like if you're in a debate with somebody, I got my position, they got their position. I totally disagree with their position, right? Let's say we're debating in front of other people. Okay. If we're just having a debate in a private room, I handle it differently. But if I'm in front of other people and we're having a debate and everybody's listening, because we're arguing about something, I want them to say as much as possible. I want them to talk more, because the more that they talk, the more ridiculous their ridiculous position sounds to everyone else.
It's more ammo for me anyway.
Exactly. So here, talk more. Oh, tell me more about that. Why do you think that? Oh, so you must believe this. Oh, you don't, but you believe that. Okay, well, tell me more about that, right? Why? And it's like the more they talk, people are like, oh my God, dude, that guy was nuts. Exactly. So exactly. So why would you want to censor? I don't know. It is beyond.
Well, I think what's happened to the ACLU, and this is my, again, a guess. I don't know this for sure. This is my guess. I think if we dug into it, we'd probably find out this is true, is that their funding changed. And the funding that before was like, we're free speech absolutists because we're the ones likely to be censored. And so here's the funding to keep censorship away so that we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people that fund them probably changed, either as a different group of funders, or they no longer believe
those people got in power.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, we're not the ones that are going to be censored. It's all the other people that are wrong. They're wrong. Yeah. They're the ones that are going to be censored. Yeah. And so actually we're in favor of that. That's good. No one should hear that. Those lies, those are lies, like no one should be able to hear those. And so probably there's, given where the money comes from, probably they're like, well, we don't want to take cases that would upset our donors. And it's just a different, I imagine it's if you follow the money, that's why.
Okay, so this is a good segue to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
So we had gone back and forth in our text thread about, just as an interruption, Lola just started the vacuum cleaner. Can you hear that?
I can hear it.
You can. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can.
The dulcet sounds of domesticity.
Yeah, domesticity. Okay, I'm going to ask my question in mute. Okay. So in our conversation, something had come up and you're like, oh yeah, but as issues go, that's not very high on my list or something like that. Oh. And I had responded with, well, okay, if you could only pick one issue that you're like, okay, to fix America, I only have the chance to do one thing. What is the one thing that you would do or change or get behind that you feel would have the biggest difference on everything else?
For America?
Yeah. Like, so, people are like, oh, well, we need to fix this country. And the way we fix the country is by shutting the border, let's say, or by getting rid of Muslims, or by bombing this country, or by getting universal health care, or whatever the case may be. What is your cause célèbre you think would make the most impact?
Okay. So this is going to be, remember, I'm a philosopher, not a political theorist. So I'm going to give you kind of a, you're not going to like this answer. So one of my favorite stories to read to the kids when they were little is this old Russian folktale about this mother hen that needs water. So she goes to the river. She doesn't have a way to pick up water from the river. So she asks the acorn tree if she can have the cap from the top of the acorn to use as a cup. Acorn tree says, sure, I'll sell it to you. It's going to cost this. So she goes in search of that, and she goes in search of that. And each step along the way, and fun thing about this folktale is you can have it last, as long as you can keep the kids' attention as like, oh, well, now I'll give you a piece of leather from my collar, says the cow, if you'll give me new new bell. And it's like, well, how am I going to get the brass? That's not my problem, right? And so in the process, at the end of this story, it doesn't terminate in her, because there's always a need for the next thing. It terminates in her going to the mountains where the magical elves live. And the magical elves, like, at the end she needs iron or something. The elves that live in the mountain take pity on her and give her iron, which she then uses for this chain of commerce that eventually gets her the water at the end. She pays this person, pays this person, pays this person until you get to the end. So the idea here, I think, is so interesting, is that if you're living in an economy, the economy, what we see is exchange, one thing being exchanged for something else. But we don't really think about the origin of that exchange, where it comes from. And where it comes from is the magical elves in the mountain, which in this case is nature. We have to somehow, in order to get a prosperous economy, or one where our exchanges mean something, is not if we're sitting there taking percentages off of everybody else's exchange, but everything's just being exchanged for something else. But we have to be like drawing from nature, and then what we draw from nature is used for our exchange. And so I think what we need to be concerned about in this country, if we want to survive as a nation, is to figure out how we're drawing from nature and then turning that into an engine for exchange. So something where we buy everything from overseas and export debt, or or we're basically, what do we do? Like the industries that do stuff are financialized industries or whatever. It's like we have to figure out some way to like draw from nature and then produce. So I don't know if that's manufacturing, I don't know if that's agriculture, I don't know what that is. But we're not thinking in terms of like a harmonious drawing from nature, the magical elves that live in the mountain. I think until we do that, if the only thing that we're exporting is currency, there's nothing to save. I think the other thing, if I was going to pick something sort of culturally, I think the most important part of the United States is the first two amendments to the Bill of Rights. I think the first two are the things that are worth keeping. And if we lose those, and I don't mean lose them in terms of legally, but I mean like lose them in terms of culturally, where it's like, oh, what's valuable to me is that you can believe whatever you want, and that you can think about it, you can talk about it, you can speak to others about it, you can speak to whoever you want to about it, you can publish stuff about it, and then you can use that to go tell the government that they're wrong and like change things. And without that sequence of freedoms that we all sort of love and agree to, then there isn't anything worth saving. I mean, otherwise, what is America? Like, a military? Is it the land? I mean, the land can be here with other governments. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, the only thing that really matters is the freedoms for the first two. I think the first two amendments. The other ones kind of follow from those first two. So, I think we need to like love those things. Like we all need to love the freedom of speech that other people have, not just our own. And I think if there was some way to do that, and I don't know, like we would need like a cultural change, a cultural shift, where it's like, I am so happy that you're saying things that I disagree with. Like, and then you have a big audience. Like, how beautiful is that? And without that, I don't think there's anything worth saving. So, but I don't know how to do that. Like, all the other stuff is stuff on the margins. Like, how should we pay for healthcare? What mix of private and public funding? Should there be a wall? Not. How many people should come in? By what method? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Those seem to be such small issues in comparison with, are we making anything? Like, are we mixing our labor with nature and producing something new? And then, do we love each other's freedoms? I think those are the two really big issues.
It's interesting that your first one was about production. So, like, how do I transition back into a producer's economy? Basically, is that a fair way to characterize what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So I think we do a lot of production. I mean, we make the drugs that the rest of the world buys, so we're really good at that, and we're really good at manufacturing tech. But yeah, I mean, manufacturing for sure. Making things out of physical things, probably not. We've slipped a lot, I would say. Certainly from an economic standpoint of, So it's interesting. So I like those. I will say that I think, or I'd ask you to consider what would drive those two things. Like, how could you induce demand around those things?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
So
Like, what would motivate people to get up in arms about those things, for example?
so I think the manufacturing one will happen once we have better fiscal responsibility. Like if we're not able to inflate the currency to purchase things, or to insist on our own currency being used as the storage of value elsewhere, then it's sort of like we'll be forced to make more stuff on our own, and sort of putting those things to, like, we won't have an empire to go exploit. So it's like, oh, we can build all these things using lithium ion batteries. It's like, well, where's the lithium come from? Oh, this mine way over there. You got all these children dying of toxic exposure to the chemicals used to pull the
Right.
lithium out of. It's like, well, you can't do that
But there's
anymore.
no EPA over there, so we're good.
So we're good. Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So once that ends, it's like, oh, then the production starts, because we can no longer exploit the empire. So that's a long-term
Wow.
one. The second one, I think there's some things that we could do politically, but I don't think there's enough incentive to do them. So like, imagine if the rest of our campaign season was the Trump, that, well, for alphabetical order, the Harris Trump campaign, where they showed up to all the events together. And so like, she makes a speech, he makes a speech, everybody shakes hands,
Like the
everybody
Lincoln Douglas debates.
yeah, or like, we're gonna go and like take picture, we're gonna do selfies together. It's like, which one do you want? Pick which one you want. And like, we're gonna
No, we can't
but
do that, because if I'm seen with this other person, that means that I,
right, I know, that's what I'm
endorse
saying. Like
everything that they stand for. Yeah.
the incentives are all against it. But like, that would be like, can you imagine, like, oh, we're all going to the political rally? It's like, well, who else is going to be there? It's like a whole bunch of people. I disagree with half of them, and we're going to, at the end, we're going to see God Bless America and put our arms around each other, because the candidates are putting their arms around each other and saying God Bless America. It's like, well, that would be kind of fascinating. And so maybe you could have that from the top down, sort of provide this kind
Well, I
of
think the
love
problem
of
with
each
that
other's
is that
freedom.
you have, well, the problem with that is that you have, on both sides, I think, in fact, regardless of your ideological bent, as you're watching this, I would challenge anybody watching this to disagree with this, is that we've been fed this diet of, we're under attack by the
Yeah,
other side,
they're the enemy.
and the
They're
other side
more
is the
dangerous
enemy,
than the terrorists.
right? There was a survey done last, was it 2 years, 3 years ago, that Republican, they asked Republicans, right? Would you rather your daughter date a Democrat or a Russian? Or something like a Russian spy, something like that, right? And overwhelmingly the Russian.
At least they're patriotic. Democrats hate their country.
Yeah, they stand for their country. Yeah. But all, so it's like if you're on the left, you think the right's out to like impose Handmaid's Tale, on the country, and take away, all of your rights. If you're on the right, you think the left is out to, sell your children into sex slavery, and if they can't do that, chop off all their organs. I mean, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
wild.
it's crazy. And so, how in the world are you going to get those people stand on the stage together?
Oh, that's the thing.
They hate America.
All
Whoever they are, they hate America.
All the incentives are against it. Like, people are going to vote more out of fear and anger than they will out of like some kind of rational basis. So once we discovered that, you're just going to have to run the fear and anger trail until the government collapses. We'll have a civil war, and then we'll figure it out after that.
I'll give you an idea that I heard several months ago, and at first I was kind of like, I wasn't excited about it, wasn't interested in it. But the more I thought about it, the more I think this has a lot of merit. So, and we won't have time to talk about this, obviously, but like, I'm gonna put it out there, and then you think about it. We'll talk about it next week. So, okay. The problem with the American system is the money. That the fact that there is so much money in these elections, and it's not presidential election only. I mean, like all these elections, they're all bought and paid for by the lobbies, the various special interest groups that are out there. I think this is self-evident, right? I mean, whatever side of the aisle you're on, that's got to be obvious to you. If it's not obvious to you, please wake up, read a newspaper. You know, it doesn't even matter which one.
They're
Watch
throwing
Fox,
the
watch
evidence at you
MSNBC.
all the time.
It is obvious, okay? And in fact, you look at all the legislation that comes out, it is bought and paid for by exactly like, I mean, the carve outs for the industries that contributed are right there. I mean, and I guess back in the 70s, there were two Supreme Court decisions that came out in the 70s that were very consequential. One was a decision that designated that corporations are people. We agree corporations are a separate entity from a person, but they gave the rights of personhood to these corporations. So if the corporation is a person, then the corporation has a right to speech.
They do,
because people have rights to free speech. And so the second decision was that money equals speech, right? Because, and you and I have had this conversation. Well, I mean, how can we curtail their right to speak and lobby and whatever, right? Because I mean, but okay, so corporations are people and people have a right to free speech and money is speech. Therefore, corporations have, and that was in the 70s. And then in the 2000, I think 2001, whatever it was, Citizens United, or no, it was two or three, whatever it was. Citizens United corporation can give unlimited money to, through PACs to whatever election they want. And as a result, you basically don't have the independent people that we're talking about in Washington that we actually like, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard's, the Trump, even Trump really has taken money now from, you can tell how he's modified his positions on different things because of the money he's received. But Bernie, these different people that are like, there's a Republican guy who won't take any PAC money whatsoever, right? And he has the freedom now to say whatever he wants to say. Most everybody else is just swept up in the machine. So if you could get money out of the political system, remove corporations are not people. They are individuals, not humans, not people. They do have some rights. They don't have people rights. And then money is not speech, right? It might be speech for me as an individual human being, want to contribute money. I have the right to raise money and get people to do it. But a corporation does not have that right. And if you could do that one thing, think about what the ramifications of that would be, not only in terms of the different policies that we would get, the different types of representatives that would get elected, their ability to actually affect change and work for the voters instead of the people that are paying to put them in office, right? But also like how we as people would feel about the system. Like right now, everybody kind of knows that your vote doesn't really matter. It's all kind of a foregone conclusion. We're going to go through this kabuki, but we know they're all going to do whatever they're going to do. And it depresses the hell out of people. And they basically throw their arms up and say, I'm not going to get involved because it's not my system. People inherently know that. And like I brainwashed myself to go, I know it's my civic duty. I'm going to go do it. Right. But I also know that it doesn't matter. And that sucks. That's poison in the system. So you don't have, nobody feels like they live in a representative government, really, it's just, did my team win or lose, And so anyway, consider that. We'll talk about it next week. I know you got to run, but good conversation, man, as always.
That's a good one. I think I have a rejoinder for you next week. We'll pick it up there.
All right. We'll start with controversy. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, man. Have fun. Thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with my face.
You look great.
Our faces. And we'll do it again next week.